Okay. So for today's session, we wanted to extend a little bit more into the data side of things. And the reason why is because you might have report cards coming or some comments about how to use some of the data for personalized learning. So we thought we would start with some data. Okay. All right. Before we get into the data information, I just wanted to do some updates. So basically, if you have any comments or ideas of how it's been going in the classroom and you want to share it, please go into the chat and share it. We will be sharing that with the team afterwards. And there's also a roadmap here that was shared at the beginning of the kind of the session that we started in November. I just want to make sure that everyone's aware to use the roadmap because it has some powerful tips in there. Today's month is January, for the month of January, we have the webinar hosted in there, and then we also talk about achievement and improvement reports. So I'm not sure if anybody's had a chance to look at that report, but if you have, again, put it into the chat. I want to hear about it. And if you've missed the webinar, if anybody that you know has missed this particular webinar, I will be sharing it with Andrew, and they will be putting it into the eHub. Okay. Okay, so let's talk about some data. There are basically 3 reports or 3 areas that we can pull data from, and it depends on how you want to review any of this data. The insight is if you want to create a personalized pathway, if you want to use it for report card comments, if you would like to use it for summative or formative assessment, depending on what you would like to do with the data and how you want to review it is where you're going to decide into which area you would like to extend it. So we have assign, results, and reports are the most commonly used 3 areas for reports. And then we also have ways that you can collect paper and pencil reporting within the ebooks. So this is kind of like an assessment tool, but within the assessment tool, you can collect that paper and pencil, and there's rubrics in here, and it builds a repository of student learning that's being taken place as the learning's taken place. So some great formative assessment there as well. So I just threw that in there as an extra side piece to further some of the data collection if you'd like to, and we can explore what that looks like. I just threw in an example of one of the e-booklets for the assessments. Okay, so for today's session, we will run into, or we'll go into both assign, results, and reports. So basically, in your Teacher Center, you have access to all 3, and to kind of give you a brief view of what all 3 focuses on is the assign is basically a great tool for a quick view because it basically brings up all the students' current marks that they received on one page based on per unit, and it's great as an intervention tool because it brings in that traffic light system. So hopefully you're all familiar with that. You'll see it in the Teacher Center and in the Student Center. Our scoring bands or percentage bands are based on the traffic light system, so you'll see a red, green, or amber color throughout the center, and again I will show you this once we go live into the Teacher Center. So that's assign. Reports, I find this to be really great for high level. So if I want to see just how Johnny is doing, I can go in there and I can see where the bulk of his learning is taking place within those learning bands as well. And then the results is where you can really dive deep. That's where you're going to see a high overview of maybe participation, so just the non-academics, the time online, the points, or maybe you want to dive a little bit deeper into the academic side of things, and that's where you can find unit average scores, or you can find strengths and weaknesses, great for report card comments. So there definitely is some more reports or assessments or data in the results area, but there's a lot in there. So we'll definitely dive deep into there, but I just wanted to share this just to kind of help you as a cheat sheet on what tool you might want to use to collect your data depending on what you're looking for. Okay. So I've seen some more people have just signed on, and it looks like some more are coming on, which is fine. If you're just jumping in, we're going into some data and how to look at some of the reports. This will be recorded as well, so if you've missed the first 5 minutes, we kind of just started, you can always jump back on and see this later on. Okay. So let's go live into the Teacher Center, and let's show you what you're able to pull for some of this reporting within your Teacher Center. And again, if you've joined, please use the chat functionality for any comments or questions. It will be filtered out by Suma. Okay. And hopefully everybody has had a chance to play around with some functionalities in their Teacher Center. If you've downloaded e-booklets or have been able to differentiate or customize a course, I mean, again, please do share it. We'd love to hear how it's been going over the last month or two for all the participants. But this is your Teacher Center, so hopefully everybody's familiar with it. The areas that we're going to focus in on are assign, results, and reports. So they basically go one after the other. Assign is the first area we'll go into. I mean, there's two parts to this particular one. Most teachers will use this as an assign functionality, meaning giving homework to their students, which is a great tool to use on facilitating the learning. But I find the data to be really nicely laid out here as well. So for example, if I click on my unit and I open it up, number, counting, and ordering, you can see all the activities here, and then I can also see all my students here. And right away, you can see that score band and that color band based on that traffic light system. So as an educator, I can see who's in the red zone. And at that point, do I need to intervene? Do we need to review this? Is there a disconnect of the learning that's taken place? This just gives you a really high level overview. And you can also see who's in the green zone and who's in that amber zone. So at this point, quick view, if I wanted to, I can say counting by fives, it looks like Lionel Messi has done 20% as his latest, and that number in the top right hand corner tells me how many attempts he's done this. So that means he's done it 3 times, he's got 20%. That's an indicator, that's a red flag for me that he's not understanding it. There's a disconnect in learning taking place. I need to intervene. So that's a good indicator for me. If I click right onto it, I can reassign it to the student as well if you want them to maybe do this one-to-one. So he's struggling here, maybe I reassign it. I'm going to pull him aside. Let's go through counting by fives together and see where his learning is or how he's processing this particular strategy. Okay. So great overview here, and that's all underneath the assign. Now if you want to dive a little bit deeper, so I can see, let's say Albert Einstein, he's got kind of like a mix of colors in his particular unit that we're looking at. If I want to maybe look a little bit further, we would go into results. So results has a couple different tabs that you can click into. I find the ones that are mostly used are results by student and results by activity. Recent results are great data tool if you're, let's say, in the computer lab and everyone's doing an activity and you just want to see the most recent results that were completed in that particular session. That's a great tool for that. If you want to see how a student is doing, so I mentioned my Albert Einstein, who's kind of got a mix of bands there for scoring bands. Maybe I want to go into here and see it by student. Or results by activity is basically the scenario of I've assigned a task to my students. I want to go in and see how did everyone do with counting by fives. So again, a great powerful tool there as well. But let's say, for example, I want to see how my student is doing. If I click on results by student, it will then bring up all my students in the class and it will lay them out by that color coding system. Okay, so you can see all my students on the left. And then you see all the color coding coming up. It also tells you percentage bands as well. So if I go to Albert Einstein, here he is. And if I look at all the activities he's done, I can also see where the bulk of his learning has taken place. So the bulk of his learning is 50 to 85%. He's kind of almost at that half and half mark between the two. And then I can also see his outliers. So I can see he's done 4 activities in 86 to 100%. And then my concern is, what are these 8? So where is he struggling, and what are these activities? Because he's getting 26 to 49% with 8 activities that he's done. So it's a great viewpoint, and if I want to dive a little bit deeper, I can click right onto that 8, and then I'm able to see the activities he's done in that particular score band, how many times he's attempted it. And again, you could even do intervention here by simply clicking right onto that particular activity and assign it to him as again. So this is, again, just seeing almost like a strength and weakness on where the bulk of their learning is taking place. Okay, and that was underneath results, and we went in by student. If we wanted to see it by activity, this is a great tool to say, as a teacher, we've conducted this particular lesson. I had my students complete this activity. Did they understand it? So for example, number counting and ordering, if I expand it, let's say we've just done a lesson on counting by 5s. I could see that some students have done it, and most of them are hitting that 50 to 65%. So I'd probably say, you know what, my students didn't really understand it. The reinforcement wasn't quite there. I'm going to reteach this particular strategy, and then I can go in and get them to complete the activity again. You can encourage them to go in multiple times because it is randomized questions. They're not going in and just memorizing it. So this is a great tool for the teacher to determine if that particular lesson maybe was a good lesson, they've understood that learning, or I might have to reteach it, or we might need to maybe dive a little bit deeper into that concept. Okay. And that was all in results. The next area is reports, and there's a lot in here, so I'm just going to throw it out there. It totally depends, again, on what kind of data you're looking into, because you can definitely get lost into the data. It's a lot of reports and numbers and Excel sheets, so I don't want to overwhelm you. I want to just kind of give you a high level of what each one of these tabs focus in on, and then I'll tell you the ones that I personally like. So let's start off at the top, achievement and improvement. So this is going to tell you an overarching percentage on the unit. So number, counting, and ordering was the unit we've been looking at. I can see where my students are as a unit average of the content in there, and it will even tell me math growth. So if they're improving within that particular concept, this is where I can see where that improvement score is. Certificates, exactly what it means. So if certificates is a huge engagement piece in your class, this is where you would print it off or recognize any of those students that have earned the certificates. Hopefully there has been teachers that have been printing it off. Students love to have that tangible document just to show their name on a certificate. If you've had any huge success, please share it in the chat. We'd love to hear about it. Effort and participation is the non-academics. So this will tell you time online, so how much time they've logged per student, and then it will even tell you points. So basically how much points they've earned, so you're able to recognize, again, those top students that have earned a lot of points, and it might be within live Mathletics, it might be the curriculum, but it's just, again, a way to recognize your students. Activity and usage report is a really heavy document. It comes out as an Excel document, but it has some great charts in there. So even if you download it and look at just the first page where it shows you a couple different charts there, you might be able to find some data that's relative to what you were looking for. So that's the activity and usage report. And then the last one is student reports. Student reports will give you how the students are doing in your classroom, right down to strengths and weaknesses. Really powerful for report card comments, or student portfolios, or even just progression reports. So student reports will give you an overview of how they're doing within the actual curriculum content. Okay, so that's an overview of the 5 tabs, but the ones that I really like are student reports and the achievement and improvement. So the reason I really like the student report is because there's 2 folds of views I can see here. So what it will bring up by default, it will bring up your class first. So I have 2 classes there, so just pretend it came up, and this is my class. So my students are here. I can see some learning taking place, again, based on those score bands. But what's really important for me here is to see my class strengths and weaknesses. So right now, I don't have any strengths. Disappointing, but let's look at the weaknesses. So the weaknesses show me how my students are doing overall across the board within, let's say, multiplication. So right now, as a unit, my students are getting around 37% as an average within my class. So as a teacher, this is going to tell me again that we need to review this particular unit because overall they're scoring quite low. It will also show me the activities as well. So groups of 7, that's telling me within the multiplication unit, they're struggling with the 7's fact families. They're getting an average of 10%. So that's one that we definitely want to review, maybe spend a little bit more time viewing it. So it's just, again, a great viewpoint for teachers to see maybe areas of need or areas of strength of an overall class situation. If I want to dive a little bit deeper, I can click on the student now. So let's say I click on my Albert Einstein. I can see his reporting, so it lays out this nice little bar graph where the bulk of his learning is. So nice viewpoint, but most importantly, I can see his strengths and weaknesses. So his strengths are modeled numbers, ascending order, which is bigger, fact families, add and subtract. And then if I click on his weaknesses, I can also see right down to the activities and units. So if I was in report card mode, or I had to look for any kind of information that I had to share, I can say Albert Einstein is struggling with concepts to 0, but accelerating with modeled numbers. So again, you're pulling the data that's relative to the students. There's even an export feature here as well. And there's even a school year that I can pull this from. So if you want this to reflect your report card period comments or report card periods, you can pull it from a certain date. So it's only collecting that data from those months or those weeks. So it's not pulling it from the start. Okay. That was underneath reports, and that was student report. So strengths and weaknesses, great overview for that particular data. The other one is achievement and improvement. And the reason I like this is because it tells me a unit average overall, and then it plots my students. So I'm allowed to see who the outliers are within this particular report. So for example, let's go back into number counting and ordering. It brings in this chart. If I hover over top of it, it will tell me I have students ranging from 20 to 89%. So that's a wide range, but it looks like my average is about 65%. Now, if I click right onto the bar, it will then plot my students below. So I can see where all my students are based on the unit average and who my outliers are. So Lionel Messi is sitting on the outside and Noah Webster is sitting on the outside. The bulk of my students are right into that 60 to 70%. If I'd like to dig a little bit deeper, I can click right onto that student. So maybe I want to see what Lionel Messi is doing. I click on him, see results, and it will bring up this report. So this will show you the activities they've completed. So for example, if I look at counting by 5s, he's increased by 20%. His first attempt, he got 0. His highest, he got 80. His latest, he got 20. So this will tell me that he's improved, but I mean, he's improved because he got that highest mark, but his latest is declined quite a bit. And if you keep scrolling through, you can see any reports that are here. Let's click on Noah so I can show you his and what it looks like. So basically, he's done a lot of activities in here. I can see the green. I can see the decline here. So this tells me, again, why did he decline by 20%? What happened? Maybe I want to have that conversation with him to see if he can maybe do skip counting with coins as a performance-based assessment to kind of see, again, what the learning is being conducted as he's completing this particular activity. So it's a great view of just seeing that growth. Okay. And that was underneath reports in achievement and improvement. I briefly mentioned some of the e-booklets that you can pull from the library, and they have rubrics attached to them. So any books that you download here will have a student and teacher booklet here. So you can look at the teacher booklets. They have embedded assessments in there. We even have some more underneath rich tasks that were created by Dr. Marion Small that have rubrics with them as well. So it's just a great paper and pencil way to collect some of that data. Okay. So let's jump back onto the PowerPoint. Hopefully that was some good information or where to start with some of the data. What I do encourage is everybody who's been on this particular webinar is pull at least one report that you thought was quite powerful that I talked about today. That might be maybe the strengths and weaknesses. It might even just be looking at the assign functionality and seeing the score bands in there. Whatever report you think that you can use currently in the next, let's say, week to 3 weeks, play around with that report. And we're also here to support if you have any questions or want to go through any of it together. Mark your calendars for the next webinar. It will be February 28th, and it will be on creating customized courses. So basically, the reason we've done this afterwards is because we've collected the data, we've seen where we need to do intervention. Now we want to create that customized pathway for that particular student based on that data that we've pulled. So that's why these two marry together quite nicely. The creating customized courses is a really powerful tool, so hopefully everyone can join. And again, using your roadmap for guidance, there's some good tips in there. And we all went through the roadmap with Jennifer, so she's got a lot of input on that document and the stuff that we've put in there. So hopefully you are all using that within your classroom or at least as a guidance tool to help you along the path of the Mathletics journey. So that's all we have today. I'm not sure if there was any comments or chats. I'll reach out to Suma and ask her if she wants to share anything from...
No, actually, there was no chatter on the chat section, so...
Okay.
I think yeah.
Well, okay, that commences our session for today, unless there's any other questions that you want to put into the chat right now. If not, I don't see any coming through. So I think we will...
Do you want to maybe unmute everybody?
No. Everyone feels good about the data. That's good. Okay, thank you, Matt. So it sounds like most of you are good with it. I hope that you'll be able to pull some reports in the next couple weeks. And again, reach out to myself or Suma for any kind of support that you need while everyone's exploring reports. Great. I love to see that. So if you have any other questions, please reach out. But we will end the session because I know it's during your lunchtime. So hopefully you can have a little bit of downtime right now. And thank you for joining. And I will be sending this recording to Andrew. And you can always go back and reference it if you want to kind of look at it again. Okay. All right, everyone. Thank you. Have a great day.
Thanks.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.